Hello, today I'm going to be talking about books because reading is a thing that I like to do, if you didn't know that. I'm not a booktuber, but I wanted to make one of these videos because I have a lot to talk about with these books and no one I know in real life is particularly interested, so. Also, I feel like this framing's a bit weird, but I don't know why and I don't know what else to do with it, so we're just gonna have to go with that. But yeah, I have quite a few to get through, so I'm just gonna get started. These are not in any order of like favourite to least favourite or anything. I can't really order these in which one's my favourite other than one of them, which is my favourite. The rest of them aren't in any order at all. So the first four are a series, and they are the Sally Lockhart series by Philip Pullman. You might know Philip Pullman because of his Dark Materials, which I have but I haven't read yet. These are some of my favourite books ever. As you can see, it's a series of 4 books. They're all set in Victorian England and they all have really intense storylines. The first one is The Ruby and the Smoke, which I read in my school English lessons, and I immediately bought the rest to read myself. The character of Sally Lockhart, who is like the main character, is incredible. She's such a strong woman and so ahead of her time, which might be because these weren't actually written in Victorian times, but she is just a really interesting character, and especially in The Ruby and the Smoke because she is so young in this one. I think she's 16 if I remember rightly. I read these before I read all of the others on this list. I've got notes here on my laptop, by the way, because I have read these books over a few months and I don't remember everything about them, so I just made notes about them when I read them so that I could make a video about it at some point. There's a reoccurring thing in these books, which is that they have really cleverly woven storylines, so the entire thing will be sort of calm, or like not calm but confusing and stuff. They're mostly like murder mystery, that type of thing, and then suddenly it'll drop a one-liner in the last chapter and change everything, which I personally love. They all involve things like murder and crime and all sorts of social issues like sexism and religious discrimination and all of that type of thing, which is fairly relevant at the moment. They're definitely not light, easy reads, so if you don't like sort of suspense and crime and death, frankly, then don't read these. My favourite is probably Ruby and the Smoke, the first one, but I think the whole series together is better than any one of the books by itself. The Ruby and the Smoke is probably the most action-based of them all. There's a lot of death, a lot of fighting, a lot of crime, a lot of plot twists, and they all have that, but this one has the most. And there isn't anywhere in this book where there isn't something super intense going on. The second one is The Shadow in the North, and in this one a lot of the problems are more underlying and secret until you get to the end and they drop the one-liner and everything, like I said. So there's a lot less action like at the start and the middle of this book, but then you get to the end and there is so much going on, and the plot twist at the end, oh my god. The Tiger in the Well is similar to The Shadow in the North in that sense, because pretty much the main theme of this book is that they have no idea what's going on and everything's happening and no one knows why until the end. And it makes it even more gripping because you literally don't know why anything is happening. It's just completely random things happening, and then at the end they're just all brought together and it makes sense, and it's the best ending. It's so good. There's also a child thrown in the mix of this one, which makes everything much more emotional. I actually cried once reading this, which is a bit lame, but I did. I think the fact that there is a child takes away some of Sally's sort of like fearless badass attitude type thing, which is understandable because she's the mother and a child's in danger, but it does sort of take away some of the original character from the first 2 books, which I'm not sure if I like or not. But if there wasn't a child there, then this whole storyline wouldn't work, so it's fine. This is definitely my favourite ending out of the 4 of them. It basically just ties together everything in the first 3 books and makes everything make sense, and it's really dramatic, really surprising, like you don't expect it whatsoever, and it's just one line in the last chapter and everything makes sense in a really bad way. So I would definitely recommend at least reading the first 3 if you're going to read the series. 4th one, The Tin Princess, I could take or leave, to be honest. I feel like the series should have just ended there because this is an incredible book, but it's nothing to do with the first 3 other than, like, I feel like it was basically just to explain where one of the missing characters from the first book went, because there was one character in the first book that went missing and it was just a complete mystery where they'd gone, and I feel like he probably just finished the 3rd book and then realised, oh, I forgot to say where that character was and made this book. And it is a really good book. It's really gripping and stuff, but it just doesn't make sense with the rest of the book. Another thing is that this one isn't set in England. It's set in a fictional country called Rascavia, which is between Germany and what was then called Austria-Hungary. And basically they all speak German, and a lot of the names are very similar, even if you do speak German, to be honest. So I just got really confused with who was who and which character was doing what and who was bad, who was good and stuff like that. So it is very confusing because all the names look really similar for a start. And one of the main things I liked about this series was that their books were all completely related to each other and it just fitted together so perfectly. And then this one sort of just threw that because it was just completely nothing to do with the first three. It is a good book though. You could probably read this one on its own if you got some background information about the first three books. If it was explained who Jim and Adelaide and a couple of the others are, you could read this without reading the first three and it would be a really good book, but it just doesn't work with the first three. Also, it's the Sally Lockhart series and she's only in this for about 5 pages, which is a bit confusing. It's all about Jim and Adelaide and all of the Rascavian people in this one. It's nothing to do with Sally Lockhart whatsoever. So that's a little bit confusing why they put a book in a series about a person that isn't about that person, but I mean, it is a good book. So basically these three are incredible. This one, not so sure. I'd probably recommend that you just read these three. You don't really need to read this one. I would say to read them if you like the sort of real world books. They don't sugarcoat anything at all. It's completely, you know, there's a lot of death, there's a lot of poverty. It's very realistic to what Victorian England was like, and it doesn't, and they're not very light-hearted. So if you're into romances and stuff, there's a bit of romance, but I wouldn't recommend these. But if you're like me and you do like very dramatic books, then these are definitely really good. They're very well written, and like I said, the plot lines are just so cleverly done. And if for some reason you don't want to read them, I don't know why you'd be watching this video if you don't want to read, but if for some reason you don't like reading, there are films out for The Shadow in the North and The Ruby and the Smoke. I personally wouldn't want to read these two without reading The Tiger and the Well, because this just like completes everything out of these two. But there are films for these two that do work on their own, and they've got some really good actors in there like Matt Smith and Billie Piper and stuff like that. So if you don't want to read them, definitely watch the films. Next is The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. Forgive me if I get a little bit dramatic, but this one literally changed my outlook on life and death. It's like amazing, but also the complete opposite of amazing. Basically, and this isn't a spoiler at all, it's actually like the second sentence on the first page. This is written from the perspective of a girl called Susie Salmon who was raped and murdered. And this is basically her watching the people she was associated with when she was alive, like her friends and family, from heaven. I'll get onto that. And sort of looking what they're doing to cope, and because she was murdered, like seeing if they found the murderer and stuff like that. To be honest, I was a bit unsure when I first started reading this because it seemed like it was just going on a bit and nothing was really happening. And it kept like, it didn't seem to have a main plot, and it was just, I thought it was going to be a bit boring, even though it's quite intense. But even though it does stray away from the main plot in some parts, it is a really, really good book. But even if there's certain parts where it does stray away from the main part and make you feel like it's not really progressing in the story, but even if there is certain parts that it does stray away from the main plot in and it doesn't really feel like it's progressing much, all of those individual parts are so gripping and they make you feel so much because they're really, really well written. I will admit that I did cry when I was reading this, which is again a bit lame, but I guarantee if there was a film made for this, in fact I think there might be a film, that everyone in the cinema would be crying. It's definitely not one for the light-hearted, put it that way. In terms of the whole heaven thing, it portrays a really good non-religious view of heaven that could still be applied to pretty much any religion or anyone without a religion like me. I've heard a lot of theories on the afterlife, and if I'm being honest, I do think about that a lot, and this one is basically what I believe it's like now. It just makes so much sense, and it could literally, this could be what the afterlife is like, and it would make so much sense. Well, other than the thing that happens at the end, I don't believe that would happen, but I don't think that was supposed to be like a realistic thing of the afterlife. I won't spoil what that is, but it's quite a large plot twist at the end. Let's put it that way. In terms of characters, Susie was the main character, and you know, I liked her character a lot. Obviously it was written from her point of view. There were certain times when I didn't like what she was saying or trying to do, but I did quite like the character. I love Lindsay and Samuel and Hal and Buckley and Nate and Lynn. Oh my god, Lynn. Lynn is like the best character ever. She's so, oh my god, I love her. I don't like Len at all. And I don't like Abigail, but you do have to consider what she went through. Ruana and Ray and Ruth as well, I really like them. I feel like Franny and Holly could have been included much more than they were, but I did like their characters. Obviously, I didn't like George Harvey, and I didn't really like Mr. Connors until the end of the book, or Dr. Singh. I think my favourites were Ruth, Lindsay, Lynn, Hal, and Samuel. It would be Ray and Ruana as well, but Ray was like a little bit creepy at the start, and Ruana could have been in it a lot more than she was. Also, this is a bit random, but the chorus of She's My Winona by Fall Out Boy now reminds me of Jack and Buckley, so that song now makes me cry every time I listen to it. But yeah, I loved and hated this book at the same time because it was upsetting but also like really meaningful, and if you haven't read it yet, I would definitely recommend you do. It's quite popular, I think. I'd heard of it before I picked it up, so I'm pretty sure it's quite famous, and thinking about it, I do think there's a film of it now, but I might be wrong. Next one is Grasshopper Jungle by Andrew Smith, aka my favourite book ever. This is amazing, I love it. The characters, the plot, the way it's written, just everything about it is amazing. It's my favourite book ever, I love it so much. It's written from the perspective of a 16-year-old boy from Iowa called Austin Zerber, and basically it's the end of the world. The way it's structured and stuff is really cool. It's written from Austin's point of view, but there's certain things that it's like narrated, of things that he doesn't know at that point in the plot, but it's written as if he does know them, if that makes sense. There are some really weird parts in this, but the book doesn't seem weird because the characters think that the things that are happening are weird as well. So it's not like weird things happen and it's just completely normal. It's very strange, but really good. It's really hard to explain without spoilers, but the blurb says, in the small town of Ealing, Iowa, Austin and his best friend Robbie have accidentally unleashed an unstoppable army, an army of something, hungry, 6-foot-tall praying mantises that only want to do two things. I'll let you guess what those two things are by the word that I didn't say. This is the truth, this is history, it's the end of the world and nobody knows anything about it. That line, nobody knows anything about it, is quite significant when you read the book. Basically, it's about how a genetically modified strain of plague came to exist, which is crazy, and then the plague like gets released through something that happens, and there are so many plot twists and unexpected things that happen as a result of that. And then there's loads of character development along the way. Like, the characters in this book are my favourite characters out of any book I've ever read. I love Austin, I love Robbie, I love Sean. Johnny's a bit weird, but I love him. Oh, they're just so good, I love it. They're also complex and interesting, but they just seem so normal, which I think is what I love so much about this book. They're just completely normal characters in a situation where something completely not normal is happening, and it's how they react to it and what happens. And there are, like I said, there's so many unexpected things that happen. It's really gripping and I love it so much. The only thing that bothers me is that one of the significant things in this is called the Eden Project. I don't think that Andrew Smith knew when he was writing this that the Eden Project is an actual place that most people who live in England have probably visited. I actually went there a few weeks ago, and the Eden Project in real life and the Eden Project in this are very different things, to say the least. But that is only minor. If you don't feel like reading this for whatever reason, there is probably going to be a film about it coming soon. There's been loads of rumours that Edgar Wright is going to make a film based off this book, which is going to be incredible. It's already my favourite film and it hasn't even come out yet. Edgar Wright is the person who directed Baby Driver, which is currently out. I haven't seen it, but he's like a big director, and apparently he's thinking of making this into a film. Oh my god. The book is about 6-foot-tall praying mantises, which, as it says on the blurb, only want to do two things. One of those is eat stuff, namely people, and the other thing I'll let you figure out from the book. So the film is going to have insane special effects, and obviously it's an Edgar Wright film, so it's going to be massive and there's going to be some really good actors in it, and oh my god, I'm so excited. The only worry I have is how they will portray the characters, because I think if I was reading this from an adult's point of view who was born in a different generation to me, I would have a very different mental image of what the characters look like and sound like and act like, but I'm sure it'll be great either way. It's not really a romance, but there is some romantic things in this in many different ways, which you will get if you read the book. However, if you want a calm love story or anything that's calm in any way whatsoever, this is not for you. It's not too emotionally heavy. I mean, there's some parts that are quite emotional, like the bits with Eric, Austin's brother in them, they're quite emotional, but the rest of it, not particularly, which I think I like about it. It's more based on the action. It does show how the characters feel, but not in a way that would make you cry. It's a bit more fun. Like, it is a bit emotional, but it's not like The Lovely Bones. It's a bit more fun. I would definitely class this as like a thriller or even a horror, maybe. So if you're into that type of thing, definitely read this because it is so good.